The unparalleled martial god who walked alone in the martial arts world died tragically under the thunder of the sky, but upon waking up, he was shocked to find that he had traveled to modern society. Dungeon 1, Secret City Storm. North American live-action gun battle, where one person supports the new king of the underground world with one knife and kills the alchemy monsters. Dungeon 2, Academy Idol. Take down Sakura Girl in 3 days because I am the God of Huaguo Dance. Stick, you can stick at all keywords of the novel. Wuxian Girl's Infinite Game without pop-ups, Wuxian Girl's Infinite Game Complete Collection download, Wuxian Girl's Infinite Game latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The Yin Wu Shen. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1.1.1. Day in Wuxian. On the balcony of the apartment, Tao Xiaoxian sat cross-legged on white tiles, her eyes tightly closed, and the warm spring sunshine fell on her tender cheeks, like a pure camellia. This closed-eyed meditation posture lasted for about 3 hours, from morning until noon. If it were an ordinary 16-year-old girl, she would definitely not be able to support it. However, it was not difficult for Peach Fairy because she was not meditating or practicing yoga, but practicing an inner martial arts technique in the realm of martial arts. During the process of cultivation, a continuous stream of internal energy swam through her limbs and bones, serving as the second force supporting her body. Therefore, even if she meditated continuously for 3 days and 3 nights, it was not such a difficult challenge, let alone for 3 hours. As for why she was able to cultivate internal skills and where the internal skills she cultivated came from, the reason is also very simple. She is a traveler. Unlike the common travelers in novels, Tao Xiaoxian was not born in modern society in his previous life, but in a martial arts world where productivity had not yet been liberated, ruled by a feudal dynasty called Yin. At that time, Tao Xiaoxian was still a man named Li Changyu. With his outstanding martial arts talent, he defeated all martial arts masters in his early 40s and was awarded the special title of martial god. Even when Emperor Dayan saw him, he had to give in 3 points. This is truly an unprecedented achievement, as the Yin dynasty was founded hundreds of years ago and only gave birth to 3 martial gods, all of whom were awarded this honor at the end of their martial arts careers. He is a young martial god under 50 years old, not only unprecedented, but there may not be anyone who will come in the future. So, precisely because of this, Li Changyu was not satisfied with the title of martial god, and began to regard the mythological, heavenly man as the next goal of martial arts, and worked hard towards it. Unfortunately, even the god of martial arts is just a vague rating given to invincible beings, let alone the concept of heaven and man in myths and legends. After putting in a lot of effort but not even understanding the definition of heaven and man, Li Changyu, who was seriously lacking in scientific literacy, finally embarked on a crooked path and superstitious belief in a folk mystical theory of forging one's body with lightning, crossing calamity and ascending to heaven. In this mystical belief, the baptism of thunder is a necessary path to becoming a celestial being. Only by withstanding the thunder calamity without falling can one transform and obtain the qualification to become a celestial being. Li Changyu was very convinced by this statement and immediately asked Emperor Dayan to assist him by setting up a lightning trap on the mountaintop of a thunderstorm-prone area, waiting day and night, and finally waiting for the long-awaited thunder disaster. In fact, when Li Changyu was facing the rolling thunder on the mountaintop, he felt a bit hesitant because the scene was too terrifying. As the only martial god in the world, he had always stood alone, praised and admired by people, and his confidence had already inflated to the extreme. Now, facing the heavenly power, he suddenly felt the insignificance of being immortal. However, the arrow was on the string and had to be fired. Emperor Dayan, the scholars of the Imperial Academy, and various martial arts experts were all watching from the nearby mountains. He was going to be intimidated. How would the people of the world look at him? If men are the most face-saving animals, then Li Changyu at that time was the most face-saving man in the world, and becoming a laughing stock was something he could never accept. Therefore, when an unusual red thunder struck straight at the lightning platform where he was located, even though his heart was pounding, Li Changyu bravely welcomed it without hesitation. And then yes. At the moment when the true chi of his body protection was broken, his eyes turned black and he knew nothing. Then when I opened my eyes again, I realized that I had traveled to Peach Fairy, an underage girl in modern society. Not only did I become a daughter, but I also learned how foolish my past actions were by absorbing the memories of the original owner. Looking back now, I wish I could go back to the past and slap myself twice. With complex emotions about past life memories, after finishing his morning practice, Tao Xiaoxian suddenly received a phone call from the original owner's mother. On the phone, her mother fiercely questioned her, which made her remember. A few days ago, her mother had informed her that she had enrolled her in a tutoring class on Saturday. She studied English in the morning and math in the afternoon, but her memory was not good and she accidentally forgot. It should have been careless, at least on the phone. There is still math class in the afternoon, don't forget to go this time, remember. Mother warned over the phone. Remember. Hanging up the phone, Tao Xiaoxian breathed a sigh of relief. She had no father or mother in her past life, a pure orphan. After becoming famous in the martial arts world, everyone greeted her with a smile, and it had been a long time since she felt suppressed in her aura. It is puzzling how an ordinary middle-aged woman without martial arts skills can make her feel so nervous nowadays. Is it because of the relationship between seniority and inferiority? Fortunately, both of the original owner's parents work in multinational corporations. In the past 2 years, she has been sent to a certain European country to explore new markets and cannot return home several times a year. As the sky is high and the emperor is far away, she naturally cannot be subject to too strict supervision. Otherwise, I really don't know how to live in the future. It's absurd that the grand martial god has fallen to this place. Tao Xiaoxian thought to himself, then changed his clothes and went out to the tutoring class. The tutoring class is located deep in a pedestrian street near my home. In the afternoon, there are not many pedestrians, and the willow catkins in April are flying all over the sky, like light snowballs. On the way, she met several classmates, all from the same class or grade, who seemed to be unlucky enough to sacrifice their weekend time for extra classes. Because there was a big generation gap with these young girls, she walked silently at the back. Occasionally, 1 or 2 girls would talk to her, and she would say something perfunctory. And when they passed by a milk tea shop, at the suggestion of several girls, the group decided to buy milk tea here. Anyway, tutoring institutions only focus on making money, and it doesn't matter what kind of drinks to drink during class. Having a cup of milk tea to accompany them can also comfort the soul of those who are forced to attend tutoring. While waiting for the milk tea to be made, the boys unconsciously started talking about the hot topics on social media recently. Is there a swordsman fighting at night near the city center? Are they flying eaves and walls? Is it really fake? I don't know, I saw that video quite realistically, and the person who made the video also swore to have seen it with their own eyes. How could it really be? It's not filming. But recently there have been more and more videos like this, and the quality is still very high. If they are all special effects, then they don't even have an official account. What are they doing with this picture? Special effects are so expensive, and the actors are so professional. I don't know, maybe it's the wealthy second generation Tuyilu. It could also be generated by AI. Recently, many big companies have been working on AI, and Image AI is one of them. Everyone was discussing, and the Peach Fairy beside her instinctively raised her ears. She has also seen the original film online, in which 2 masked people fight in a pitch-black alley. During the battle, she can even occasionally see flashes of flames and sword energy, which are highly realistic and do not look like special effects at all. Unlike the mainstream view that it is a script, she believes that the battles in the video are not a script, because apart from the special effects, both swordsmanship are genuine and both want to kill each other without any mercy. However, her martial arts skills are completely different from hers. In the video, the two's combat swordsmanship is mostly plain and lacks variation, appearing somewhat rigid and rigid. Perhaps this is the martial arts of this world. Just with the progress of productivity and changes in social systems, a group of martial artists have hidden themselves in the shadow of modern society, which has made it rare for anyone to realize. While pondering these things, Tao Xiaoxian was about to ask a few questions when a girl next to her suddenly reached out and pointed to the sky, exclaiming in surprise, "What is that?" Upon hearing this, Tao Xiaoxian looked up and indeed saw a strange black thin line in the sky. In the midst of everyone's gaze, the black line rapidly expanded and thickened, as if someone had used a sharp knife to make a cut in the sky and then forcefully tore open the crack. This scene is undoubtedly very astonishing. After seeing this scene, not only the group of high school students outside the store, but also the pedestrians on the roadside, the waiters in the store, or the auxiliary police officers on duty on the pedestrian street, all raised their heads and even took out their phones to capture this eerie scene in mid-air. "Something's coming out," exclaimed a sharp-eyed boy. With his voice, a brown figure emerged from the crack and landed heavily in the center of the pedestrian street. "What is this? Damn it! Aliens! My mom!" Under the shocked gaze of hundreds of onlookers, this brown figure finally appeared clearly in front of everyone. This is a very peculiar creature, with a rough humanoid upper body and a thick and long snake body in the lower half, resembling a snake man in mythological legends. But unlike the snake figure in fantasy films, this creature's head is particularly ferocious. Its eyes are large and dull, with bulging eyeballs and 3 rows of fish fins on top of its head. Its huge mouth can crack open to the edge of its jawbone, revealing its fine pointed teeth inside. Although it is a human body with a snake tail, looking at the head alone is more like some kind of ugly monster fish from the deep sea. In an instant, the pedestrian street was in chaos, with screams echoing one after another. No one knows the origin of this thing, but it looks so scary. It's always right to run away first. However, the group of high school students where Tao Xiaoxian was located were not so lucky, and the monster almost landed on their faces. When it turned around and looked behind it with its dull fish eyes, several timid girls were so scared that they didn't even have the strength to escape, and could only tremble and fall to the ground, unable to move. You. Hello. A girl stood close to the monster, looking up at it in a daze. It wasn't until the foul smell from its mouth hit her face that she realized something and stuttered as she spoke. Ignoring her greeting, the monster screamed and with a powerful sweep of its claws, it cut off the girl's head. Under the spring breeze, the headless corpse slowly tilted backwards, casting a sky full of peach blossoms. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Amendment 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2.2. Amendment. With the scene of blood splattering on the long street, sharp cries rang out on the pedestrian street. If one could have previously thought that this monster was just an ugly and kind-hearted alien, a highly intelligent creature that could communicate, then with the girl's death, all optimistic fantasies suddenly turned into nothing. The crowd began to flee, but in the shadow of the building that no one noticed, Tao Xiaoxian's eyes showed a chilling murderous aura. Yes, she is not familiar with this girl, even if she is a classmate, she only vaguely remembers that her surname seems to be Qi. But watching the other person die in such a tragic way still made her feel angry for a long time. Quickly, a silver light flashed and a dagger-shaped knife appeared in her right hand. This knife is actually a kitchen utensil, but after being infused with true Qi, it is not appropriate to use it as a weapon. She had never thought that this small knife could truly be used before, but as a person in the martial arts world, she always had a habit of carrying a weapon. Unexpectedly, she found a place to use it today. Later, when the monster was caught in the sight of the fleeing crowd and attempted to hunt in a certain direction, Tao Xiaoxian quietly appeared behind the monster. The sword light in his hand was like a silver crescent moon, cutting a huge cut on the monster's right arm covered in fine fish scales. In an instant, the monster let out a painful scream, and anger and madness faintly appeared in its dull fish eyes. It turned its head to look at the despicable girl who was sneaking at it, and began to unleash a series of wild attacks. However, Tao Xiaoxian was extremely familiar with both her body method and lightness skills, and she managed to sweep and kill her several times with her sharp claws, narrowly avoiding even a single strand of hair. Evil beast, even with this little skill, dare you act recklessly and kill in broad daylight? Tao Xiaoxian dodged and sneered coldly. In her past life, there were countless monsters around the Yin dynasty. Compared to those 1,000-year-old demons who had died in her hands, this snake-tailed fish monster was just a miscellaneous fish among miscellaneous fish. With just a second-rate expert, she could easily kill it. Of course, her current internal strength is only third-rate, but the level of martial arts in the martial arts world depends on her overall strength. As long as her skills are good and her internal strength is poor, she can still defeat the strong with weakness. Just like her current appearance, she appears to be third-rate, but even against some second-rate experts, she still has a great chance of winning. Once the combat power of the fish monster was confirmed, Tao Xiaoxian immediately turned from defense to attack, dodging while constantly leaving varying depths of cuts on the fish monster with his small knife. Most of these wounds are not fatal or even considered serious injuries, but they can continuously bleed the fish monster, gradually weakening its vitality. Accompanied by dark brown viscous blood flowing continuously from the wound of the fish monster, its attack frequency also slowed down significantly, even the powerful and heavy tail flick attack before began to feel powerless. However, the fish monster clearly realized this, and after using a bravado and fierce counterattack to push Tao Xiaoxian back, it immediately rushed towards the other side of the pedestrian street, clearly wanting to escape. But Tao Xiaoxian had been waiting for it to do so for a long time, and the last part of his internal strength exploded like a dam for flood discharge. The cold knife light came and struck the neck of the fish monster, chopping off its fish head almost entirely, leaving only a little skin and flesh on its neck. Even the lotus root was broken. So, the headless body of the fish monster convulsed and fell to the ground, completely devoid of vitality. Damn it! The students in the distance were stunned as they watched the body of the fish monster being treated by Tao Xiaoxian in his own way. In their eyes, Tao Xiaoxian is just a low-key and beautiful girl in her grade, silent and reserved, but most likely she is the type who appears cold on the outside but is actually weak on the inside and extremely lacking in love. Contrastive and cute, as portrayed in comics. But who would have thought that she was hiding such incredible martial arts? What is the situation? Have we encountered the inheritors of the martial arts family who are hidden in the city? Tao, you. Who the hell are you? Quickly, after confirming that the fish monster had died completely, the students in the tutoring class leaned in one after another. Their gaze at Tao Xiaoxian was filled with awe and disbelief, as if they were looking at aliens. Tao Xiaoxian remained silent. Although she understood the consequences at the moment of taking action, it was really a critical moment and she couldn't come up with any suitable excuses for a moment. I can't say that I was a martial god who traveled through time. Besides, just the fact that middle-aged and elderly men become beautiful girls is enough to make her feel hot on her cheeks and embarrassed to speak up. And at this moment suddenly, a line of words appeared before her eyes. Task completed, congratulations on receiving reward points plus 50, we have detected that you have not obtained a player qualification and will soon be granted a special game qualification. Do you accept this? Please make your choice within 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6. What is this? Tao Xiaoxian was stunned for a moment, then looked around. The surviving pedestrians were cautiously approaching in this direction, holding their phones high and constantly shooting, clearly curious about both Tao Xiaoxian and the fish monster. Several girls were standing next to the bodies of their victimized female classmates, with a sorrowful expression on their faces. They were probably good girlfriends with whom they usually had good relationships, and the auxiliary police officers further away were talking on walkie-talkies, each with excited expressions and spitting stars flying around. She blinked and immediately realized that the UI interface, which looked like a computer game, should only be visible to herself. As for the reason, it was probably related to the killed fish monster. What if I don't accept it? She hesitated for a second before finally deciding to accept. Accept. She tentatively replied in her heart. Player registration successful. Your player ID is 2768, and the first game will start within 24 hours. Please prepare in advance, outliers have been eliminated, world correction is about to begin. First time playing. World correction. What is this? More confusion emerged in Tao Xiaoxian's heart. She wanted to ask something, but a sudden sense of confusion interrupted her thoughts. When she regained consciousness, everything changed. The bodies of monsters and female classmates were gone, and the blood stains on the ground disappeared. Willow catkins were scattered on the walking street, and pedestrians leisurely strolled the street. Time was quiet and peaceful. When she turned around, the classmates in the tutoring class were chatting outside the milk tea shop like they were 10 minutes ago. She carefully distinguished and couldn't find the figure of the victim girl surnamed Chi in the crowd. Is this correction? She stayed for a while before walking up to a girl and probing, so, where's Chi? Who is Chi classmate? The girl looked at her in surprise. Does anyone here have the surname Chi? It's the Chi classmate in the same class as us, the one with a big chest. Ah. You really don't have this kind of person, do you remember wrong, Miss Tao? From her puzzled gaze, Tao Xiaoxian could confirm that she was not lying. Taking a deep breath, Tao Xiaoxian opened her QQ phone again, but as the girl said, she searched through the list of class members and didn't see a female classmate surnamed Chi. She was like someone erasing her with an eraser, leaving no trace in the world. The afternoon tutoring class quickly passed in an absent-minded state. Although Tao Xiaoxian had no passion for various subjects in this world, this kind of wandering from beginning to end was still the first time he had seen it. And when she returned home, she also immediately opened her character interface. Name. Tao Xiaoxian, code. Unnamed, player ID, 2768, life. 90, constitution. 7, spirit. 13, energy. 30, talent. Martial God will, heavenly destiny sword soul, ability. Martial arts true chi LV1, prop. None, points. 50, number of completed games. 0, through an afternoon of research and consulting with the intelligent customer service provided by the system interface, Tao Xiaoxian has basically learned what the UI interface in front of her is like. This is actually a system client called World Games, where only the selected players can obtain player qualifications, and then participate in the game to earn points and make some special purchases. The fish monsters encountered by Tao Xiaoxian during the day are a type of situation called spatiotemporal anomaly points, usually accompanied by the invasion of other dimensional creatures. The main task of players in the real world is to deal with these outliers and bring time and space back on track. As for people like Chi who die from dimensional creatures, they will be corrected by the world's causal power after death, and only players have the authority to be immune to this correction. This is also why the deceased Chi will be forgotten by everyone. After understanding all of this, most of the doubts in Tao Xiaoxian's heart were finally solved, and of course, she also asked about some of the doubts, such as the source and purpose of this game. But this seems to go beyond the knowledge scope of the intelligent assistant, and the answers I received after asking for a while are all insufficient permissions. And the last question, what are points for? Tao Xiaoxian said to the intelligent customer service in her heart. Points are the main rewards that players can obtain in each game and real-world mission, with three main purposes. Attribute exchange, service exchange, and market trading. Attribute exchange can increase players' lifespan, physique, spirit, and energy. The exchange ratio for each additional point is 10.1, which means that 10 points can be exchanged for one attribute. Service redemption is a special feature of the system that will be unlocked after the first game. The specific redemption price will depend on different functions. Market trading is a player trading market provided by the game official, which will open after the first game and allows for the purchase and sale of special items. It seems that the 50 points in hand can only be used to strengthen attributes for the time being. But it's unbelievable that even the lifespan can be changed. While exclaiming in surprise, Tao Xiaoxian opened the bonus interface and then skipped the lifespan, adding some points to his physical, mental, and energy abilities. By analyzing the changes in her feelings before and after adding points, she roughly determined that physical fitness should increase strength and endurance, while mental improvement is relatively vague and may be related to energy. The energy increase is the most intuitive, and at the moment of adding points, she felt a small increase in her internal power cultivation. After some consideration, she exchanged the remaining 20 points for 2 points of physical fitness. After all, her physical attributes are the lowest, and she is more inclined to smooth out her weaknesses than to strengthen her weaknesses. Quickly, with the addition of points completed, Tao Xiaoxian's physical fitness points increased from the initial 7 to 10 points. The feeling of such a huge improvement is undoubtedly very intuitive. According to her estimation, now she can knock an adult to the ground with just one punch based on her physical strength. But unfortunately, her figure has not changed at all, still with thin arms and legs, as if her hands are powerless. It's really very interesting, she thought. Then, after adding points, she found the Game Start button in the system interface, which had a countdown, meaning that even if she didn't actively choose to start, the game would automatically start when the time was up. So there's nothing to wait for, just go ahead and play it. After all, who can refuse a game that can even redeem its lifespan? By the way, system, what would happen if I died in the game? Will your game die? Suddenly, something came to mind, and Tao Xiaoxian asked again. If the main quest is not completed during the game's death, it is considered a game failure. Game failure does not affect reality, but will deduct a percentage plus fixed point. When the point value is negative, the player's qualification will be lost, and all the power and memory obtained from the game will be automatically lost. Becoming an ordinary person, will the redemption lifespan also be taken away? Life will not be reclaimed, but only life will not be reclaimed. It's quite tolerant, Tao Xiaoxian said, then skipped the wait and clicked to start the game on the interface. The game is about to start, please enter your player code, Martial God. The code is already in use. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Secret City Storm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3.3. Miyagi Fengyun. The code name chosen by Tao Xiaoxian is Lake, which has no special meaning and is only suitable to describe her current state of mind. After finalizing the code name, as the countdown came to an end, her eyes suddenly darkened, as if falling into an unfathomable thick mist. World search in progress. Inspection completed. The current world instance is Secret City Wind and Cloud, background of the dungeon. In 1975, Midtown, a hot federal East Coast city, was also a crime paradise controlled by gangs. Here, drug trafficking and corruption gambling took place every minute and every second, and bloody street battles were as ordinary as breathing. Only the strongest in their hearts could survive in this corrupt world. Dungeon type. Single player, main task. Survival, task deadline. 180 days, friendly reminder, main quests are only the foundation for completing levels. If you want to get better rewards, players are advised to exercise their subjective initiative, explore more, and improve their overall score. When the scene in front of her became clearer, Tao Xiaoxian realized that she had unknowingly arrived at a strange place, which looked a bit like a street in a residential community. There were single houses with courtyards on both sides, and Ford or Chevrolet vehicles parked on the roadside. Looking up, the tallest building she could see was a steel pole made on the roadside. It was already dusk, and the sun was setting in the west. The golden light fell on the coconut tree by the roadside, casting a long shadow on the ground. "Did you just physically cross over here?" Tao Xiaoxian lowered her head to look at her clothes. Fortunately, she was naturally cautious and had considered this situation before entering the game. She specially changed her home clothes and slippers into sportswear and sneakers, otherwise her image would probably be a bit awkward at this moment. Later, she realized another serious fact. The game system had parachuted her in directly, without even a pre-identity, which meant she had to survive here as a Chinese illegal immigrant. But her English proficiency is really a bit poor, and before finding a Chinese community like Chinatown, she faces many difficulties in communicating with local residents normally. How to put it, survival is not difficult, but how to survive with dignity is a big problem. Moreover, the reward for completing the level depends on the overall performance, but what are the evaluation criteria for overall performance? Making money? Developing power? Or is it exploring hidden missions hidden here, hiding the plot? In this way, she fell into contemplation, and the more she thought, the more headache she felt. But soon, a sudden event caught her attention. Several cars suddenly appeared on the distant road, chasing back and forth accompanied by intense gunfire, sounding like a mafia in flames. Watching this scene, Tao Xiaoxian was stunned for a few seconds, but the thought that this was not China, but the United States in 1975 didn't seem like a big deal anymore. She didn't really want to get involved in such an event, so she looked around and finally flipped lightly into a nearby courtyard. This courtyard does not belong to a single household. After flipping through it, Tao Xiaoxian realized that it was a small garden. Inside, it was a place similar to a golf course or racecourse, and from the English on the nameplate, it was likely the clubhouse of a certain club. The word club she could still recognize. At this time, the club is still closed, the doors are all locked, and there are no security guards guarding. Tao Xiaoxian walked to the side of the clubhouse, applied some lightness skills, and easily climbed onto the rooftop balcony. Unlike the kind of hand and foot climbing in Assassin's Creed, she safely climbed the eaves and walls, and the climbing process was more like a yellow sheep jumping between cliffs, perfectly interpreting the so-called lightness like a swallow. In addition, although she does not intend to participate in the battle of the gang, she still has an interest in eating melons, which can be seen as adding some knowledge to her future foreign life. Quickly, accompanied by gunshots, a total of 8 cars from front to back entered Tao Xiaoxian's sight, with the first 3 clearly running away and the latter 5 cars desperately chasing after them. Both sides occasionally poked their heads out of the car window and fired at each other, but perhaps due to the bumpy road and poor marksmanship, they fired several shots at each other, but in the end, no casualties occurred, and the sun was red on each side. However, just as the 3 fleeing cars were about to pass through the entrance of the club where Tao Xiaoxian was located, several cars suddenly appeared at the intersection ahead, firing wildly at them. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be an ambush set up here in advance. In this way, the 3 escaping cars were attacked from both sides and could only quickly turn the wheel in the opposite direction. In the end, they plunged into the garden of the club. On the balcony on the top floor, watching this scene, Tao Xiaoxian felt a bit speechless. Is this the plot killing of the dungeon world? Do we have to guide players and these people together? Fortunately, she is not an ordinary person either. Although she cannot carry bullets with her own body, relying on her proficient lightness skills and body movements, self-protection is not difficult. Quickly, under her gaze, the fugitives in the 3 cars got off one after another, the vast majority of whom were black-clad men in suits and leather shoes, looking very much like gangsters in Hong Kong movies or insurance salespeople. And on the roadside outside the club, pursuers also choose to follow up. This group of people is relatively younger, wearing punk-style short-sleeved or assault jackets, with a variety of hairstyles and a playful and smiling expression, which are more likely to evoke the image of ignorant street thugs. However, just as Tao Xiaoxian thought that this was all the troops on both sides and was about to start the confrontation between the two armies, in the second of the three fleeing cars, a blonde and blue-eyed girl in a red dress finally emerged. She was surrounded by people in black, with a delicate face and extraordinary temperament. It is believed that she was a young lady from a wealthy family, and the identities of the people in black around her were also revealed, probably all of whom were the young lady's bodyguards. It seems that the situation was too bad, and in the hopeless situation of escape, both sides used vehicles, stone pillars, and other things as cover for a distance negotiation. However, because the negotiation content was in English and the speed was too fast, Tao Xiaoxian didn't understand a word. But the outcome of the negotiation is quite easy to judge, as the next second the two sides began to engage in fire again. Except for the girl in a red dress who hid in the club's clubhouse under the cover of a bodyguard, the other bodyguards did not persist for too long and suffered heavy casualties, basically losing their resistance. In this way, the remaining pursuers immediately surrounded the clubhouse building, making the girl in the red dress who hid inside a cage bird, waiting to be captured obediently. After finishing the melon on the rooftop, Tao Xiaoxian realized that she should also make a choice. Whether to actively get involved or just pat her butt and leave. It's definitely not a problem to leave directly, but this girl in a red dress has an extraordinary background at first glance, and her family must be very wealthy. If we can save her, it will undoubtedly be very beneficial for her 6-month survival in the dungeon. And while she was thinking like this, the gang downstairs also noticed the figure on the balcony. One of the young people with green hair shouted and raised his gun with a flick. If it weren't for Tao Xiaoxian hiding quickly, at least a few strands of hair would have been pulled off at this moment. It seems that he had to be saved. As a person who held grudges, Tao Xiaoxian immediately made a decision. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Dumb Hair. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4.4. Dumb Hair, Bang. With a gunshot, Daisy Victoria pulled the trigger and shot through the chin of her bodyguard next to her. The splashing blood fell on the beautiful cheeks of the girl, making her look like a prickly red rose. This bodyguard is named David, who has been working with the Victoria family for many years and has made great contributions to the family. Daisy also trusts him very much and always affectionately calls him Uncle David. But humans are selfish animals, and no one values the lives of others more than their own, especially since there is no inherent kinship between the two parties. Therefore, when David hesitated in his eyes and even began some verbal probing, Daisy didn't hesitate to move her hand. After all, who would give their back to someone they don't trust? Quickly, pushing aside David's body, Daisy walked towards the second floor of the clubhouse. When I got off the car before, I used the car phone to inform my family of her location. I think the reinforcements are on their way, but now I just need to hold on for a while longer. But now that everyone else is dead, how long can we hold on with just one gun on our own? Thinking of this, Daisy's cold eyebrows and eyes couldn't help but show a hint of nervousness. The clubhouse has 3 floors in total. In order to save time, Daisy immediately climbed up to the 3rd floor and began searching for a room that could serve as a temporary hiding place. But soon, as she was passing by a luxurious room on the 3rd floor, the door next to her suddenly opened, and a slender little hand reached out and forcefully pulled her in. Before she could scream out loud, she covered her mouth with the other hand. What's going on? Are there ambushes all over here? Are the members of the Kim family so abnormal? Daisy was nervous in her heart and struggled desperately, making a whine sound while trying to raise her gun and shoot behind her. But the person behind her also understood very well. Although she was a bit thin, her strength was terrifying. He forcefully pulled her pistol over, and in the end, he pressed her whole body under him with force. In this way, there was only one kind of resistance left, and Daisy's heart sank. She opened her mouth and fiercely bit the other person's hand. Hey! Why are you still biting people? On the other side, Tao Xiaoxian's hand hurt and quickly used her internal strength to resist. Later, seeing that the other party was indifferent, he suddenly realized that there was a language barrier on both sides and slapped her in the face. Let go. Her slap was still very effective. Daisy, who had been pampered since childhood, never suffered this kind of punishment. She was hit so hard that her eyes were full of stars, and instinctively let go of her mouth. Later, when she regained her senses, she looked at Tao Xiaoxian and was surprised to find that she was actually an Asian girl who looked even younger than herself. She looked even more harmless and extremely beautiful, but she was scared out of her wits by Tao Xiaoxian's sudden attack and thought she was going to die, so she bit so hard that she refused to let go. Are you? Daisy covered her swollen and red face from the beating, tears streaming down her face in pain, but she could only endure the injustice and ask with confusion. My mother, I can save you, you can call me Tao, Tao Xiaoxian said calmly in her own construction English. I'm Chinese, I can save you, you can call me Tao. Tao. Hello, my name is Daisy. Daisy was stunned by her poor speaking ability and only understood her meaning after a while. Can you save me? Really? Yes, my English is not good. I'll save you, you give me a beautiful knife. Tao Xiaoxian said in as simple English as possible, okay. Okay, Daisy said, money, a lot of money, I can give you. Although she was not sure where the foreign reinforcements came from and what confidence they had in speaking such words, since the other party could catch her and let her go, she could only choose to believe it. And the other party's expression was also very straightforward, saving her was for money. Such a blatant expression is actually somewhat reassuring. After collaborating with the girl in the red dress, Tao Xiaoxian listened to the commotion outside and began to calculate the solution to the current crisis. She had noticed before that the enemy had also left someone outside the building, and jumping down from the window with Daisy was likely to be shot, so she could only break out from the inside of the building. Thinking of this, she picked up Daisy's pistol and looked at it. This is a black revolver with 5 bullets left on the wheel. Even if all the bullets are fired, they can only eliminate a small portion of the enemy. Here you are. After hesitating for a moment, Tao Xiaoxian returned the revolver to Daisy and asked her to keep it for self-defense. Then she took out the small knife she had used to kill the fish monster and ambushed it in the room with Daisy. By listening to the commotion outside, it can be seen that the gangsters are searching in different floors and rooms, which gives Tao Xiaoxian a chance to break through each one. When a gang member pushed the door in, the peach fairy hidden in the corner of the ceiling like a gecko fell directly from behind him, silently cutting open his throat, so fast that people couldn't see clearly. Behind the cabinet in the room, Daisy, holding a gun, stared blankly at the scene until Tao Xiaoxian threw the bloody corpses of gang members onto the nearby bed. She was finally relieved of her petrified state and lowered her voice, exclaiming, "Are you a professional assassin?" Yes, if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would never have believed that a girl with a sweet peach blossom-like face could possess such terrifying killing skills. This is simply a super killer that only appears in novels. What are you saying? Tao Xiaoxian didn't understand, but it didn't matter. From Daisy's expression, she could probably guess what the other person was thinking. Without any explanation, after gesturing for her to remain silent, Tao Xiaoxian slightly poked her head out of the room, intending to observe the situation outside the corridor. At this moment, a gang member was preparing to inspect another room when he unconsciously turned his head and looked in the direction where Tao Xiaoxian was. Tao Xiaoxian immediately withdrew his head, and when the gangster's gaze turned towards him, all he could see was a small strand of silly hair swaying in the wind, like a beautiful woman's snow-white thighs protruding from the room, emitting a seductive fragrance. End of this chapter. How could this be possible? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5.5. How is this possible? After seeing this mischievous strand of silly hair, the curious gang members immediately walked towards us. There are a total of 5 members of the gang responsible for the 3rd floor inspection, and the missing one has not caught his attention at all. After all, he has not heard the sound of gunfire so far. Without using firearms, the little girl from the Victoria family cannot resist. She is probably still hiding in some corner playing hide and seek. Pushing open the open door of the room, as soon as he walked inside, the gang member smelled a faint smell of blood, but it was too late because his attention was completely drawn to the corpse lying on the bed, unaware of a top-down knife light. So, a series of old tricks were repeated, and another gang member died under the knife of Tao Xiaoxian. However, this time she had a stronger attack, and the small knife infused with true energy was like an invincible guillotine. It even directly cut off the heads of the gang members, splattering blood and rushing all over the ground. "You stay here, I'll go kill them," Tao Xiaoxian turned to Daisy. Her movements were crisp, sharp, and silent, so beautiful that any professional assassin would have to bow down, but the strong smell of blood could not be resolved. Sooner or later, it would attract the attention of the remaining 3 members of the gang in this layer. So, taking the initiative is the best choice before they become aware of it. "I understand." Daisy quickly nodded, afraid to look at her. As a young lady from a mafia family, whether it's murder or the profession of assassin, she is not unfamiliar to her. Therefore, when she looked at those naive and foolish classmates in high school, she always felt a sense of superiority from top to bottom, just like a mature adult entering a babbling kindergarten. But the Chinese girl named Tao in front of her completely shattered her understanding of her peers. It seemed that in her eyes, killing was as simple and ordinary as eating and drinking water, without even a hint of tension, excitement, or fear emerging. What kind of person is she? With such confusion and curiosity, Daisy clenched the revolver in her hand and hid in the corner of the room, silently praying for Peach Fairy. However, in just 5 minutes, Tao Xiaoxian, who had just left, walked into the room again and said, "Follow me. Let's go." Daisy paused for a moment. "What do you mean?" "They're dead," Tao Xiaoxian said, "I killed them." Although she knew that Tao Xiaoxian's poor English led to such a concise expression, her light tone still gave Daisy a different sense of absurdity. She took a deep breath and quickly followed behind Tao Xiaoxian, taking a submachine gun she had obtained from somewhere unknown. Through gestures and simple words, she roughly understood the meaning of Tao Xiaoxian. The silence on the 3rd floor had already caught the attention of the gangsters on the lower 2 floors. Coupled with factors such as terrain, it was not realistic to attempt an assassination, and now she could only fight them with a submachine gun. After communicating with Daisy in this regard and confirming the number of bullets in the magazine, Taoxiaxianmo walked down to the 2nd floor and scrutinized the enemy outside against the wall in the stairwell. Unlike the fully enclosed 3rd floor, the 2nd floor of this clubhouse is designed with an opening, providing a wide corridor view that overlooks the entire 1st floor lobby. Therefore, occupying the commanding heights of the 2nd floor is particularly important compared to rushing to the 1st floor in one breath. "You stay here and use this to help me," Tao Xiaoxian whispered. She originally wanted to say cover, but she really didn't know the word cover, and could only change it to help and point to the gun. Daisy immediately understood her meaning, made an okay gesture, and then saw Tao Xiaoxian roll out of the stairwell, shooting at 2 bewildered gang members and killing one of them on the spot. In an instant, accompanied by intense cursing, the gang's counterattack also returned. Countless bullets poured from various places towards the location of Tao Xiaoxian, like a sweeping rainstorm. But Tao Xiaoxian was not afraid, as she quickly changed positions on the 2nd floor corridor at an unimaginable speed, while not forgetting to shoot back. Thanks to his experience in riding and shooting in his past life, even when using firearms for the first time, Tao Xiaoxian's shooting speed is very fast. In comparison, the gang's marksmanship is a bit outrageous. Not to mention that Tao Xiaoxian is a flexible moving target, even if he stands still, these rogue gangsters who emerge can still shoot bullets into magical positions they can't even imagine. "What do you bunch of trash eat?" Behind the load-bearing pillar on the first floor, the leader of the gang in this operation couldn't help but let out angry growls as he watched his subordinates pulling their hips. His name is Moslet, and he is the leader of the Kim family, one of the two major mafia families in this area. He is also the leader of this kidnapping attack. After dealing with the Victoria family bodyguards outside and starting the process of catching turtles in a jar, Moslet thought the operation was almost certain. However, who could have expected that a girl of unknown origin suddenly appeared, wielding an unknown submachine gun, and suddenly swept a pile of people from his side to death? What made Moslet feel even more speechless was that the reaction of his subordinates was even top-notch. Faced with just a little girl, they opened fire for half a day and didn't even harm a hair of the other person. He was also severely injured. What a bunch of useless things. Looking at the nimble figure on the second floor and counting the few remaining subordinates on his side, Moslet realized that he could no longer hide behind the cover. Otherwise, even if he dealt with this mysterious girl and took down the young lady of the Victoria family, their losses would still be irreparable. Come with me. Go to the second floor and do this little green pool. Mosley shouted, leading his men straight to the staircase. In his opinion, the reason why Tao Xiaoxian has such combat power is not only due to her mysterious body and precise marksmanship, but also because she has occupied the highest point on the second floor, making the heads of the people in the lobby on the first floor dare not show. They only need a group of people to rush into the second floor, and things will be much simpler at once. As they approached the staircase, accompanied by a gentle breeze, a harmless and delicate figure fell into the crowd, like a butterfly fluttering and falling. Moslet, who was rushing forward, actually didn't see anything, but a chill suddenly emerged from behind. At this moment, the frame rate of time seemed to be slowed down to 0.1 times, so slow that one could clearly see every member of the gang turning their head and the astonishment in their eyes. Subsequently, in the crowd, the girl's body spun as if dancing an elegant ballet. But in fact, this is not ballet, but the round dance of the Grim Reaper, as she holds a submachine gun in each hand that continuously spits out flames. The sound of gunfire echoed like spring thunder in my ears. In the moment when there was no time to counterattack, each bullet had already penetrated the bodies of the gangsters, leaving sieve-like bullet holes. Under the protection of the bulletproof vest, Moslet did not die in this gun rain, but rolled and fell on the ground, eating dog shit. Then he turned around in terror, looking at the beautiful girl who looked like a god of death. In his heart, he felt both fear and absurdity to the extreme. How could it be possible? How could this be possible? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Is this the Chinese Kung Fu from the mysterious East? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6.6. Is this the Chinese Kung Fu from the mysterious East? Wait. Don't shoot yet, I have something to say. Seeing the girl aiming her gun at him, Moslet threw it away and raised his hands in fear, saying, I am a member of the Kim family, but I was also attacked by orders from above. I and your Victoria family are actually innocent and have no grudges. We can talk about this matter. I can make a deal, whether you want money or intelligence, I can give it to you. You can betray the Kim family directly, as long as you give me a way out. After a moment of silence, although he didn't understand the man's chatter, Tao Xiaoxian still put away his gun. Although she had killed countless people in her previous life, her main purpose was to punish evil and promote good, and she had no interest in killing prisoners. Since the other party is holding their hands high and giving up resistance, whether to die or live is up to the little girl named Daisy to decide. Glancing at Moslet with a creepy face, Tao Xiaoxian looked up at the second floor, ready to call Daisy down. However, when she looked up, she found that Daisy was aiming her revolver at her in the corridor on the second floor. She was slightly stunned and wanted to say something, but with a gunshot, a bullet had already passed by her side. Quietly blinking, Tao Xiaoxian turned to look and found Moslet's body lying on the ground, with red and white things flowing out of his brain. At the same time, she also noticed that Mosley's hand reached into the collar and grabbed the handgun barrel hidden under the windbreaker. If Daisy didn't fire that shot or if one shot deviated, Mosley should have pulled out the spare gun as soon as possible and fired at her. "Thank you." After Daisy went downstairs, Tao Xiaoxian smiled at her slightly. "Just thank you. Did you get scared just now?" To prevent Tao Xiaoxian from not understanding, Daisy gestured as she spoke. No, Tao Xiaoxian understood her meaning and shook her head. Although she was surprised just now, she wouldn't have been startled because she didn't feel any killing intent from Daisy. Instead, the killing intent behind her was much stronger. So, after seeing Daisy's movements, she had already guessed who Daisy was aiming for. She just didn't expect Daisy's marksmanship to be quite accurate. She shot her head from such a distance, which was much stronger than the gangsters just now. Isn't this all shocking? Who the hell are you? Observing Tao Xiaoxian's expression carefully, Daisy confirmed that she wasn't lying and found it difficult to accept. I am from China. About 10 minutes later, accompanied by a piercing whistle, a large number of vehicles surrounded the clubhouse building of an unknown club, and then a group of gunmen in black rushed out of it. Tao Xiaoxian observed and found that the clothing styles of these people were similar to those of the bodyguards who were responsible for protecting Daisy before, most likely from the Daisy family. And in fact, it was also true. After seeing a middle-aged man with blonde hair at the front of the crowd, Daisy, covered in dust, immediately rushed forward and hugged him, while the other black-clad people surrounded the unfamiliar Asian face of Tao Xiaoxian. Fortunately, Daisy didn't forget her either. She immediately walked over with the blonde man, introducing her while excitedly describing the previous experience. Are you saying that all these Kim family members were killed by her alone? Are you really not joking with me? She doesn't even seem to be able to beat your elementary school brother. The blonde man's name is Andrew Victoria, he is the head of the Victorian family and also Daisy's father. After patiently listening to his daughter's account, Andrew looked at Tao Xiaoxian and asked, his tone clearly filled with questioning. Of course, it's strange not to suspect in this situation. A teenage girl alone can break through the gang encirclement, and science fiction movies dare not shoot like this. Of course it's true, I wouldn't make such a boring joke. Father, you should be aware of this, Daisy said. And you've also seen the situation inside the house. If it weren't for her saving me, could I have killed all these people? Then you look down on me too much. But this is too. Father, if you express your distrust of me like this again, I will be angry. It's not that he doesn't trust you, but... Andrew could only smile bitterly as he read the threat in his daughter's eyes. All right, I believe you. Let's go, let me meet this lovely lady who saved my daughter. I want to have a good banquet tonight to thank this benefactor. Daisy snorted in satisfaction. On Tao Xiaoxian's side, facing a group of curious Victorian family thugs, she didn't idle either. From the slightly intense conversation between Daisy and Andrew, she could probably guess what problem Daisy was facing, so she intentionally or unintentionally took out her small knife and played with it in her hand. When the small knife that had slain the fish monster and the gang skillfully flipped up and down under her finger control, like a dancing butterfly, the surrounding members of the Victoria family were indeed surprised, and their expressions towards the Peach Fairy had become particularly different. What an incredible skill! Is this the Chinese kung fu from the mysterious East? At this moment, Andrew also walked behind Tao Xiaoxian. After seeing this unheard of sword control performance, the last hint of doubt in his heart immediately dissipated. He walked up to Peach Fairy and said in pure British English, I'm Andrew Victoria. Peach Fairy, thank you very much for saving my daughter. I promise I won't owe you a penny for the compensation you agreed with Daisy before. Would you be interested in coming to our house for a meal before that? My wife and I both hope to thank you well at the dinner party. After speaking these words, Andrew looked at Peach Fairy eagerly. He had only learned about kung fu and other things from some rumors before, and only felt that it was similar to Japanese ninjutsu, both of which were deceiving things. Unexpectedly, seeing it today was completely different from what he had imagined. And this little girl is not very old, so her mind must be very simple. If we can have more contact with her, the Victoria family may be able to steal some secrets of Eastern martial arts from it. With such wonderful thoughts, Andrew waited for the girl's response, but Peach Fairy remained silent. She looked at Andrew expressionlessly, with a cold attitude like an eternal iceberg in the Arctic Ocean. So. That. Peach Girl. After waiting for a while, Andrew tentatively asked, feeling guilty and wondering if his intentions were exposed. But the wording just now should not have been very obvious, right? He glanced at Daisy and originally wanted her to help him say something, but found that her daughter was looking up at the sky with an indifferent expression on her face, and could only continue to wait anxiously for an answer. Until almost half a minute later, when the atmosphere of silence in the room was unbearable, he finally heard the girl's ethereal voice like a wind bell. That. You slow down. What? Andrew didn't understand. You speak slowly. My English is not good and I don't understand. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. English Class. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7.7. English Class. The next morning, when Tao Xiaoxian opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was the ceiling of the Victoria Manor guest room. Due to the humid weather in May in Midtown, there were faint spots of mold in the corners. After arriving here last night, she was warmly welcomed by Andrew and his wife Caroline Victoria, and also saw Daisy's brother Sauron. A mischievous-looking little boy. Although it was evident that both Andrew and Mrs. Caroline were curious about her, relying on her poor English skills, she was able to reasonably ask and ignore their questions in most cases, fooling them all by claiming that she was looking for relatives in the U.S. federal government. However, her relatives suddenly lost contact, leaving her homeless and black-handed. As for whether they believe it or not, it's up to them. As someone who appeared here out of thin air, she doesn't have any identity clues that can be investigated. Stretching lazily and not in a hurry to get out of bed, Tao Xiaoxian sat cross-legged on the bed and began practicing. Every morning from 4 to 6 o'clock is her fixed cultivation time, and since this dungeon directly traverses her body, her cultivation here should also be effective. She won't leave the dungeon and her cultivation will be reset to 0, which is too unreasonable. In this way, the meditative state remained around 8 o'clock in the morning, accompanied by the melodious sound of bells outside, and a short knocking sound came from the door of the room. After Tao Xiaoxian agreed, the door was pushed open and Daisy's delicate face with blonde hair and blue eyes peeked in. Hello. Tao, have you woken up yet? Are you practicing? After searching for information about mysterious Eastern martial arts all night, Daisy keenly understood the significance of Tao Xiaoxian's unusual sitting posture. Did I disturb you? No, Tao Xiaoxian got off the bed and took a set of clothes handed over by Daisy. This is a black suit with a court style, consisting of a white shirt, a dark vest, and a black tailcoat on the outermost side, paired with a straight slim-fitting suit. This kind of outfit is usually designed for men, and it's obviously not right for girls to wear it, but Tao Xiaoxian is very satisfied. This is the style she emphasized to Daisy many times last night, which is a bit of man. Then she changed into clothes and tied her cascading black hair into a ponytail with a headband, looking cool and capable, like a spirited black deacon. After finishing all of this, she saw Daisy staring at her from the side. She tilted her head in confusion. Well. My father contacted a language school teacher and will come to teach you English later. Daisy coughed and looked away. She didn't actually have any strange thoughts, she simply didn't see such a beautiful and handsome Eastern girl in the secret city, and couldn't help but admire for 2 more seconds. I understand, thank you, said Tao Xiaoxian. Last night, in gratitude for his daughter's life-saving benefactor, Andrew promised to give her a reward of $10,000 as a reward, which was indeed a huge sum of money in the U.S. federal government in 1975. But to be honest, she only stayed in this world for half a year, and it was useless to spend so much money. So she gestured to communicate with Andrew, hoping that he could help solve the various difficulties of living here, such as renting a house or finding a suitable language school. For this, she was willing to reduce her remuneration in half. Andrew readily agreed, but still insisted on paying a reward of $10,000. In the case of not being able to shirk it, Tao Xiaoxian could only accept it. After going to the kitchen with Daisy for breakfast, the two of them saw Andrew in the large living room on the first floor. In front of him stood several middle-aged men in formal attire, probably family generals. After seeing Tao Xiaoxian, these men looked at her one after another with different expressions. It seems that Andrew has already informed his subordinates of what he saw and heard last night. How did you sleep last night, Miss Tao? Is there anything uncomfortable? Andrew felt like slowing down to take care of Tao Xiaoxian's English listening. It's pretty good, Tao Xiaoxian said. I have found an English teacher for you, and it will be here in a while. Before that, let Daisy take you around the estate. Andrew smiled kindly, not at all like a gang leader, but more like a friendly neighbor uncle. I will solve your rental problem for you, but before that, you can also stay in the estate for a long time. My wife and I welcome you very much. Okay, thank you. Leaving the living room and walking on the grass outside, Tao Xiaoxian asked, Is your father ready to attack? Towards the Kim family. The Kim family is the gang that attacked Daisy yesterday, and like the Victoria family, it is one of the 6 major mafia families in Midtown. Its territory extends from Palm Bay to Princeton, and it is on par with the Victoria family in Kendall in terms of strength. In fact, at the beginning of the formation of the gang, both sides were always in a state of well water not invading the river, and were very stable. However, recently, a controversial area has emerged at the border of the two sides. Rose Street. This place is the best red light area in the southern district of Micheon, rich in oil and water, but it does not belong to either side, but belongs to an old man named Camp. He is the former disciple of the godfather of Miyagi. After his old age and declining strength, he was specially arranged by the godfather to retire in this place, so the two families had never had any intention of getting involved in this place before. But just 2 months ago, this old man named Camp passed away due to heart disease and did not leave any offspring, so Rose Street suddenly became the unowned land and coveted land in the eyes of the two major gangster families, and a series of issues surrounding territory division began. In the end, after several failed negotiations, it is unknown who fired the first shot in the argument, and the issue of territorial disputes escalated into a never-ending gang struggle. I think so, after all, he called all his brothers back. Oh, unfortunately he didn't let me participate, otherwise I really want him to see my years of hard work in marksmanship, and I will definitely surprise his chin. Daisy sighed. Tao Xiaoxian remembered the shot she fired at the leader of the Kim family yesterday, which was indeed very accurate, especially after comparing the poor shooting techniques of the Kim family members. Then she said, He's your father, it's unreasonable to allow you to participate. Ah. Daisy clearly agreed with this fact and sighed again, losing her strength. By around 9 o'clock in the morning, the sky was getting dark and it seemed like it would rain heavily soon. Finally, the teachers from the language school had arrived. Entering the reception room, Tao Xiaoxian saw a middle-aged man with an Asian face. He introduced himself and said, Hello, Miss Tao, my name is Lu Qingfu. You can call me Teacher Lu. In the future, I will come here every day to help you learn English. If you have any translation needs, you can tell me directly and I can help you translate. Good Teacher Lu, Tao Xiaoxian said, finally having someone who can communicate smoothly without pressure, and her heart also breathed a slight sigh of relief. Taking over the specialized language school textbooks handed over by Lu Qingfu, Tao Xiaoxian began her English course. In fact, her written English ability is not poor, and she can recognize most commonly used words when writing them. However, her oral ability is too weak, and she needs to speak slowly several times to understand. After realizing this, Lu Qingfu shifted the focus of her course from vocabulary memorization to oral practice, which made her learning goals much clearer and her efficiency greatly increased. During this process, Daisy sat beside her board and accompanied her. At first, she could still be the object of oral practice and say a few words. Then, she stared at Tao Xiaoxian's beautiful profile in a daze. Later, she fell asleep and leaned against Tao Xiaoxian's shoulder before realizing it. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Gun Training. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8.8. Gun Training. Quickly, in the peaceful alternation of day and night, half a month had passed for Tao Xiaoxian's life at Victoria Manor. During this process, her English-speaking ability has made significant progress, and she can basically chat with Daisy normally. Her vocabulary has also increased, but it is mainly related to content such as gambling, smuggling, and protection fees. There's no way, who makes the Victoria family a gangster family. If you want to communicate with the people here normally, you have to remember some English words related to gray areas. Of course, according to Daisy's account, the Victoria family also has a large number of legitimate businesses, such as the import and distribution of palm oil and avocado. According to Andrew's whitewashing plan, within a maximum of 10 years, the family should be able to thoroughly wash their hands and transition from the underworld to the underworld. Tao Xiaoxian only has one emotion towards this, which is that the primitive accumulation of capital is really bloody and dirty. That afternoon, led by Daisy, Tao Xiaoxian arrived at a shooting range located in the west, which is the property of the Victoria family. Therefore, when Daisy arrived, most of the staff in the shooting range nodded respectfully. I thought the favorite entertainment activity for high school students in the United States would be bar dancing or night parties, Tao Xiaoxian said in surprise as she looked at the target in the distance from the shooting range. Don't confuse me with those idiotic high school students with only the lower body in their heads, Daisy snorted, her fair face showing a hint of pride. I've been playing with guns here since I was 6 years old, and I've seen more bullets than the bread they've eaten. Amazing. Compared to you, it's not particularly impressive, Daisy said as she walked to the safe zone, which is the storage and management area for firearms and ammunition in the shooting range. Quickly, she brought 2 pistols over and handed one to Tao Xiaoxian. Come on, do you want to compete with me? Okay. Although she excels in the field of cold weapons, Tao Xiaoxian is also interested in firearms, which are convenient and useful hot weapons. After practicing in the target area, she and Daisy fired a series of shots at their respective fixed targets, and the comparison was also very strong. Daisy's hit rate was extremely high, mostly 10 rings, occasionally 1 or 2 skewed to the 9th or 8th ring, while Tao Xiaoxian's performance was a bit poor, with 4 rings and 3 rings being the norm, occasionally shooting outside the target. However, we can't blame her either. In her past life, she had limited practice in horseback riding and archery, specializing in swordsmanship and lightness skills. Now that she's just getting started, compared to a master like Daisy, she naturally feels a bit embarrassed. The grades are also pretty good, although there's a slight gap compared to me. After seeing Tao Xiaoxian's shooting percentage, Daisy felt a bit proud and then asked, by the way, how long have you been practicing shooting? Practice shooting. Yeah, although your current grades are average, you must have practiced before, right? Don't tell me you're a beginner, I won't believe it. You're not really a beginner, are you? Daisy realized something and asked incredulously. If we exclude the day we met, then today is indeed my first time holding a gun, Tao Xiaoxian looked at her sincerely. Daisy remained silent. She had thought she could finally straighten her chest in front of this Chinese girl, but she didn't expect to be struck by lightning so quickly. If we compare her performance as a beginner, then out of the 10 shots she shot, 9 missed the target. Isn't it without any talent? Quickly, there was no mention of shooting results. In the following days, Teixeoxian received Daisy's shooting instruction in the shooting range and gradually became familiar with the correct standing posture, gun holding, and aiming techniques. After mastering these key techniques, her marksmanship also improved at a visible speed to the naked eye. If in the first few days, many old customers of the shooting range could still come and compete with her, then in 10 days, none of the old customers of the entire shooting range could compete with her, and the progress speed could be described as unimaginable. Half a month later, the target area of the shooting range. After 10 consecutive shots, Tao Xiaoxian put away his gun, while Daisy, who was sitting in the rest area not far away, stood up and observed for a while before shouting, 70 rings. Are they really fake? In fact, for top experts like Daisy, it is not difficult to achieve a score of 70 rings on a 25-meter level target, and even a perfect score of 100 rings is normal. However, the problem is that half a month ago, Tao Xiaoxian was still a novice shooter who could only achieve 3 or 4 rings. In such a short period of time, he almost doubled his score. This is a bit amazing. After Tao Xiaoxian walked over, Daisy continued to sigh, what exactly is your brain made up of, and why can you improve so quickly? If an ordinary person doesn't persist in practicing for 2 or 3 years, they will definitely not reach your current level. Because I have a lot of practice, and it's thanks to you that bullets can be provided to me infinitely here, Tao Xiaoxian smiled and said, as the sunlight kissed her slender neck through the window, her skin seeming transparent. That's true. Daisy had to admit that Tao Xiaoxian's level of diligence in shooting was also remarkable. She came almost every day during these days and stayed there all day. Although Daisy used to like to come over every day to shoot, she couldn't hold on for that long and her hands would hurt. This guy can pull the trigger thousands of times here every day, and this endurance is unmatched by ordinary people. Then she suddenly grabbed Tao Xiaoxian's right hand and took it to her side to observe carefully. Under the light golden sky, this slender little hand was smooth and white, like a cloth doll made of white silk. No matter how it looked, no traces of calluses could be found on it. I'm so angry. Daisy lowered her head and looked at her hand, then mixed with sadness and anger. Peach Fairy. Half a month passed quickly. During this period, Tao Xiaoxian still spent most of her time on English learning and shooting in the shooting range. While English communication became more fluent, her marksmanship score also reached around 25.90 meters, and she was about to start challenging moving targets and 50-meter fixed targets. Seemingly stimulated by her, Daisy also began to crazily engage in shooting practice, and her score quickly broke through from 70 rings on a 50-meter fixed target to a stable 75 rings. And just as the two were living a shooting competition as if they were competing, this morning, exciting good news spread throughout the Victoria family. Under the immense pressure from the family, the Kim family hesitated, decided to restart negotiations, and cut most of Rose Street. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Owes me a favor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9.9. Owing me a favor. The negotiations between the Victoria and Kim families regarding the division of the Rose Street site have been finalized tomorrow. Tao Xiaoxian thought this matter had little to do with her, but it wasn't until that evening when Andrew specifically invited her and her family to a fancy restaurant in the city for a big meal that she learned from it that the development of the matter was also closely related to her. If it weren't for Peach Girl, who saved my daughter Daisy and single-handedly killed so many members of the Kim family wouldn't have bowed to us, so no matter what, I must toast you tonight. At the banquet, Andrew, drunk, held up a tall glass filled with red wine, touched the glass of Peach Fairy, and drank it all in one gulp. Peach Girl, you can do whatever you want. Tao Xiaoxian lowered her head to look at the milk in her cup, fell silent, and finally took a gentle sip as a gesture of gratitude. There's no way, she doesn't want to drink milk either, but she's underage and like Daisy, she can only drink drinks like milk or cola. After finishing this dinner, the next day, Tao Xiaoxian and Daisy went to the shooting range as usual. Anyway, Andrew personally went to negotiate, and they didn't want to go to the side to watch these people discuss some written matters. The shooting practice in the morning came to an end quickly. In the afternoon, in order to improve the shooting effect of moving targets, the two of them went to a nearby hunting ground and shot some wild chickens, deer, and a white-tailed deer. In the evening, on the way back, Tao Xiaoxian looked at the sky outside and guessed, "It seems like it's going to rain." Miqing has a tropical monsoon climate, with frequent thunderstorms as July approaches. As soon as her words fall, the drifting heavy rain falls as if to match her open mouth, accompanied by dazzling lightning and the dull thunder that follows closely. In such a harsh wind and rain, driven by the accompanying driver, the two finally returned to Victoria Manor 10 minutes later. Surprisingly, the weather was so bad that there was no presence of the Victorian couple in the villa of the estate. Even Sauron, who should have returned home long ago, was not there. Where are the people? Why haven't they come back yet? Do we have to talk for so long in a negotiation? Daisy frowned. As the eldest lady of the gang family, she is very familiar with the gang's behavior style. She will never leave a trace of anything that can be solved quickly. If it hasn't been resolved for a while now, may there be some conflict. Later, she called the maid from the estate and found out that the master was seriously injured. Madam and young Master Sauron both went to the hospital. Serious injury. What happened? How did he get injured? Multiple injuries. Daisy's face immediately changed and she grabbed the maid and kept asking. But the maid clearly didn't know much, so she could only tell Daisy the address of a hospital in the end. After more than 10 minutes, Tao Xiaoxian and Daisy arrived at the nearby Nanmi hospital with the family driver stepping on the accelerator to death. At night, there were not many people in Nanmi hospital. Although the specific ward was unclear, the two of them accurately found the entrance of Andrew's ward through the large group of family members standing guard at the door, and pushed the door in. Later, Tao Xiaoxian saw Mr. Andrew, who was almost mummified by bandages, lying on the hospital bed with his eyes tightly closed. His few exposed skin showed obvious burn marks, making it look like he had just been rescued from the fire. "Mother, what happened? Why did my father become like this?" Daisy eagerly looked at Mrs. Caroline, who had a strong psychological resilience and was able to calmly ask questions. If she were an ordinary high school girl, tears would have welled up by now. "Someone installed a bomb in your father's car. Today, after negotiations with the Kim family ended, your father got on the car and the bomb exploded. The driver died on the spot. Although your father was rushed to the hospital for treatment, the situation is not optimistic." Mrs. Caroline's voice was filled with fatigue as she gently caressed her son's head, which had fallen asleep in her arms. The corners of her eyes turned red and she said, "The doctor told me that your father is now standing on the brink of death, and his heart may stop at any moment. Moreover, his head is severely injured, and even if rescued, he may become a vegetative and unconscious for a lifetime." Upon hearing these words, Daisy sat dumbfounded by the bed like a soulless puppet, struck by lightning. But a few seconds later, she suddenly stood up again and said, "Did the Kim family do it?" Goldwyn Kim denied this and said it wasn't done by them, Mrs. Caroline whispered. "It's not him, who else can there be?" Daisy gritted her teeth and said with hatred, "I'm going to kill that bastard." "Don't be impulsive, little Daisy," a senior member of the gang advised, "we will avenge your father's revenge, but you can't join in, otherwise there will be some ups and downs, and we won't be able to explain it when your father wakes up." Accompanied by his words, other gangster elders in the room also spoke out to advise. Under the pressure of these elders, Daisy remained silent for a while before finally nodding lightly, indicating that she wouldn't mess around. However, despite that, when he returned to the estate, late at night, Tao Xiaoxian still heard an unexpected knocking at the door of his own room. "What are you doing here so late? Do you want to sleep with me?" Peach Fairy calmly asked as she opened the door and looked at the lonely blonde girl wearing pajamas and holding a pillow outside. "Can't it be?" Daisy, who was very familiar with it, climbed onto Tao Xiaoxian's bed, placed a pillow behind her and sat back. She then patted the seat next to her, gesturing for her to quickly sit over. "Of course, there are still some things I want to discuss with you," she said. "Do you want to avenge your father?" Tao Xiaoxian glanced at her graceful figure and the large snow-white skin exposed outside her pajamas. After hesitating for a while, she still managed to get into bed. She had been like a daughter for so long, and it would be too artificial to dwell on such matters. Real gentlemen shouldn't be so indecisive. Yes. This is not something that you, as a female high school student, should participate in. Tao Xiaoxian advised kindly, "It's better to consider taking the entrance exam and then getting into a good university if you have the time. But I am the eldest daughter of the Victoria family. My father is unconscious, my mother has to take care of him in the hospital, and my younger brother is still a little brat who doesn't understand anything. Shouldn't I stand up at this time?" Daisy gently leaned her head against her shoulder, but her tone was firm. "The family needs a backbone, and I am the most suitable person to serve as that backbone. Do you think you have the ability to lead a group of gangsters to fight against another group of gangsters?" Tao Xiaoxian asked, with no emotion in her pleasant voice like a wind chime. "I think I have." Daisy lowered her voice and said, "And I've been preparing for this day since I was 10 years old, but I haven't had the chance. My father's subordinates think I'm too young and a girl to do anything. Although they won't say it, I can feel this contempt from their expressions and tone." She turned her head to look at Tao Xiaoxian's cold profile and said seriously, "I need to find a way to prove myself, otherwise I will always be a princess." "Isn't being a princess also good?" "Okay, but I think being a queen is cooler and can command thousands of horses and armies. That's my ideal self." Speaking of which, Daisy's beautiful big eyes met Peach Fairy with a straight gaze. "What do you think? What's it to me? I'm not a princess and I don't want to be a queen." Tao Xiaoxian avoided her gaze and remained silent for a moment before saying, "But if you make up your mind, I can help you." "Great, with your support, I feel much more at ease," Daisy breathed a sigh of relief. "Don't expect too much. I'm neither a military strategist nor a thug, and I won't charge into battle for your family. At best, it's just to ensure your personal safety. You can imagine me as an unattractive personal guard," Tao Xiaoxian said slowly. "As for everything else, you have to rely on yourself. You're not good looking," Daisy thought to herself and said, "That's enough." Then she said, "Next, let's talk about compensation, money, or something else. As long as it's your request, I will try my best to meet it. Anyway, you deserve it. I don't need any compensation." "Why? Do you want to be my bodyguard for free?" Daisy asked in surprise. "Of course not." Tao Xiaoxian's gaze fell on the window, and the thunderstorm outside had stopped. A bright moonlight was faintly visible in the gap between the dark clouds. She said indifferently, "I want you to owe me a favor. As for when this favor will be needed, let's talk about it later." The next morning, Tao Xiaoxian woke up from a nightmare and a red giant covered in thunder appeared in front of her, stomping her into a lump. However, when she woke up, she realized that a snow-white thigh was pressing against her chest, and no wonder she always felt very dull in her dreams. She raised her hand to her forehead, sighed helplessly, and then pushed away Daisy, who was in the shape of a big, and had no ladylike sleeping appearance, and began to meditate. At the same time, I also recalled the causes and consequences of last night in my mind. There were two main reasons why she supported Daisy's decision last night. The first thing is that she has a good relationship with the Daisy family. For people in the martial arts world, it is their duty to cut corners for their friends. Moreover, the Kim family is not a good thing and there is no moral pressure to deal with them. Secondly, she believes that such behavior can help increase the settlement score of dungeon tasks. After all, the opening system encourages players to exercise more subjective initiative and explore more. Therefore, she can directly go deep into the gang struggle and personally participate in various gang events, so she cannot give up every point, which is too much. Well, although the second point is also important, the first point is definitely the main reason why she is willing to help Daisy. Time quickly arrived at noon. After the English class, Daisy called Tao Xiaoxian to the backyard of the estate. Sam and his team will take action tonight and launch a surprise attack on Kim's estate, Daisy said. Sam is an elderly member of the Victorian family and also the #1 hitman in Andrew's process of getting rich. In the absence of Andrew's consciousness, Samuel naturally became the most prestigious interim leader. What do you think? Tao Xiaoxian asked. My father just had an accident, and the Kim family must have taken defensive measures. It's too dangerous to attack the Kim family's headquarters at this time. It's better to attack the Kim family's other industrial strongholds first and weaken some of their strength. Did you tell them about this suggestion? No, Daisy shook her head. Samuel has a very stubborn and irritable personality. He doesn't listen to anyone except my father, and if they really fail, it's actually a good thing for me. After a pause, she carefully observed Tao Xiaoxian's expression and saw her face as usual before continuing to say, rather than warning in advance and resolving this crisis that may not necessarily exist, it would be better to let this crisis occur and let me resolve it. This can not only weaken Sam's reputation in other people's hearts, but also prove my ability. The only downside is that some people may die during the process. Well, what do you think? Are you worried that I think your actions are too despicable? Tao Xiaoxian looked at her and suddenly laughed, like a fleeting snow lotus on Changbai Mountain, bright and charming. Then she restrained her smile and said with satisfaction, this is actually a very normal thing, and it is a necessary path for many leaders to grow up. You don't have to feel ashamed or self-blame for it, because in the future, you will have to make many decisions like this. Hey, don't talk to me in the same way that seniors educate juniors. You're even younger than me. When her worries were exposed, Daisy suddenly became angry and embarrassed. She stood up and pinched the Peach Fairy's face, see how I teach you a lesson. Of course, Tao Xiaoxian wouldn't let her succeed, and she dodged 10 steps away with a flash of her body. Then she elegantly tidied up the collar of her suit and reminded, all right, stop messing around, my lady. Tonight will be a sleepless night, and now you should quickly prepare. You should be prepared for the action plan, right? Daisy snorted, but still shifted the focus back to the main topic. She said seriously, my thoughts are like this, you listen. Soon, in less than half an hour, the brief meeting between Tao Xiaoxian and Daisy came to an end. In Daisy's judgment, the Victorian family forces led by Samuel are likely to be ambushed and deeply engaged in a fierce battle at Kim's estate, with a small probability of flying into the air and discovering that all members of the Kim family have evacuated. But this probability is really small, unless Goldwyn Kim plans to give up his hometown, which he has lived in for over a decade, and watch his beloved estate be destroyed. And once she falls into a fierce battle, her performance space comes. At that time, she will bring Peach Fairy and all the people in Victoria Manor to support her. Yes, in her plan, even the butler, gardener, chef, and even the maid in the manor are part of the battle group and have to come together to help shoot and pounce. Who made them also part of the Victoria family? Moreover, before entering the family, these servants had undergone some combat training at Andrew's request, and were not ordinary people without combat abilities. At that time, not to mention turning defeat into victory, at least breaking the deadlock and covering the retreat should not be a problem. At the same time, the members of the gang in the family will also see a young lady with top-notch marksmanship, intelligence and bravery, and a beautiful appearance fighting alongside them on the front line. By then, without any further ado, Daisy would naturally be able to gather people's hearts and become the new ruler of the Victorian family. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Horn of Counterattack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10.10. The Horn of Counterattack. Tao Xiaoxian doesn't have much opinion on Daisy's plan because it's not complicated in itself and the focus is not on avenging Andrew, but rather a political show aimed at making followers of the Victoria family realize that even without old Victoria, little Victoria is still an excellent successor with strength, courage, wisdom, and responsibility. She can also lead her brothers to roam freely in the secret city, enjoying delicious food and spicy food. So, after the plan was confirmed to be correct, Daisy spent the entire afternoon carrying out her own lively actions. She first contacted the shooting range through her home phone and, by promising a huge bonus, gathered all the shooting coaches, safety officers, mechanics, and other staff there. Then, she mobilized all the miscellaneous staff at home and distributed firearms to each of them. She also conducted some simple temporary exercises, such as how to open the insurance, how to aim, and how to change ammunition. Of course, the effect of temporary training is definitely not satisfactory. Except for a few skilled shooters such as those on the shooting range, most of the bullets fired by people were skewed towards Grandma's house. But it's not a big deal, because the majority of the gang members in the secret city have this level of marksmanship, and fighting on both sides is like drawing cards. Whether they can kill only accounts for 5 points, and the remaining 95 points depend on luck. So I was busy until the evening, only half an hour away from the 12 o'clock mark of Sam's raid on Kim's estate. The well-dressed people in Victoria's estate also cheered up and got into several cars parked at the door. As she was preparing to board the car, Daisy suddenly took out a stick-shaped object wrapped in cloth and handed it to Tao Xiaoxian. "Is this sword?" Tao Xiaoxian asked in surprise. "The samurai sword from Japan." "I'm sorry, I was supposed to help you find a sword from the Kingdom of China, but I had someone search all over the secret city and there is no such channel. I can only compromise and use this as a substitute." "I hope you don't mind," Daisy said with some embarrassment. "No, I really like it, thank you." Tao Xiaoxian smiled and looked at her with a soft gaze. She casually mentioned the matter of entrusting someone to buy a sword to Daisy a month ago. Unexpectedly, this little girl has always kept it in her mind. It seems that she must exert some force in tonight's action, at least not paddling or fishing. Then she untied the knife wrap and saw a slender tie-dao, about 1 meter long, protected in its sheath. She instinctively pulled out the tie-dao, and in an instant, the blade shone as silver as snow, dazzling and compelling. Along with it emerged a faint evil energy that ordinary people could not perceive. Wait, how could there be evil energy? Tao Xiaoxian's eyebrows furrowed slightly, and just then, a system prompt appeared in front of her. Congratulations to the player for obtaining the item. Nameless tie-dao 2803E prop. Nameless tie-dao 2803E name. Unnamed, quality. E.level, description. An unnamed tie-dao, crafted by an ordinary Japanese swordsman. Due to multiple slaying of demonic objects, it is imbued with an indelible evil energy, which in turn gives birth to a touch of spirituality. Effect. It can slowly absorb the essence of the sun and the moon, and heal the blade damage. It can cause additional soul damage when fighting against demon races, friendly reminder. The props obtained in the game must be cleared before they can be taken out. Failure in the game does not necessarily disqualify you from the game, but it will definitely make you lose all the gains in the dungeon. Is it actually a game prop? Tao Xiaoxian was pleasantly surprised in his heart, but soon noticed the 4 words mentioned in the description. The nameless tie-dao is a prop in this dungeon. It has slain the demon. Does it mean that there are also demons in the world of this dungeon? Isn't this a supernatural replica? Tao Xiaoxian thought anxiously, but soon felt relieved again. After all, the living environment on this side of the secret city is like an exciting battlefield. Even if demons and monsters come, it's hard to say if they can adapt. There's no need for her to worry. Japanese samurai with swords and North American gangsters with submachine guns, as long as their intelligence is normal, they must know which side is more terrifying, right? Quickly, inserting the knife back into its sheath and hanging it around her waist, Tao Xiaoxian and Daisy sat in the back seat of the first car together. Later, Tao Xiaoxian glanced at today's driver and found out that he was a young man he had never seen before, looking around 18 years old. He is. Tao Xiaoxian asked. He is Vic Ed, and old Ed is his father, Daisy introduced. After old Ed sacrificed himself, I let Vic take over his father's job. Old Ed is Andrew's official driver, a very careful and gentlemanly old man, and the only victim of Andrew's bomb attack. Tonight, Daisy called Vic over to drive and gave him a gun, probably intending to give him a chance to personally avenge the gospel text. Although the opportunity itself is very slim. Daisy, Miss Tao, hello. Vic is a young man with a somewhat wooden personality. After greeting, he fell silent and quietly started his car, showing no strong desire for tonight's revenge battle. Tao Xiaoxian casually exchanged a few pleasantries, but because the young man was too introverted, she lost the desire to talk. Alright, everything is ready, let's go. After all the personnel on the vehicles have completed the inspection of their firearms and ammunition, Daisy coldly gave the order. Subsequently, accompanied by the roar of the engine, the vehicles at the entrance of the estate were like a pitch-black school of fish, heading towards Kim's estate. In the dead of night, after 11 o'clock, Miyagi was like a bar girl wriggling on the dance floor all day, finally gaining some rest time. Except for special areas like Rose Street, most of the other residential communities were pitch black, with only street lights standing alone on the roadside, releasing lonely light in the darkness. But this is not the case with Kim's manor. Even in the middle of the night, the mansion inside the estate is brightly lit, and the elegant music and noisy voices are faintly transmitted through the window to the outside, making people unable to resist speculating whether there is any elegant and aristocratic dinner being held inside. Brothers. Charge. Kill these scumbags of the Kim family and seek revenge for the boss. Accompanied by a roar, Sam, who quietly approached the mansion gate in the darkness, kicked open the gate and stormed into the house with more than 30 gunmen. They each held submachine guns or machine guns, carrying 2 chains of bullets on their shoulders, looking like a group of fierce and fearless fugitives. In fact, it is indeed the case. Although it indicates that they are all a group of lawless thugs who earn money by collecting protection fees and engaging in illegal activities such as smuggling, they have no morality to speak of. However, within the gang, they highly respect the morality of the martial arts world. Andrew gave them work, gave their relatives, friends, and children the opportunity to rely on their families to make a living together, so that they no longer had to bow down to lenders for tens of dollars in rent like before, so they would naturally be loyal to Andrew, and even willing to die for him. Brother Samuel, why isn't there anyone? However, after seeing the situation in the lobby of the mansion, a gunman exclaimed in surprise. Contrary to expectations, although the dance music and conversation had not yet ceased, there was no one in the lobby, not even the necessary butlers and servants for the estate. What about people? Did they get the news in advance and run away? Although he was a semi-literate with only elementary school education, facing such a strange situation, Samuel also realized something was wrong. He immediately took people to the rooms where the sound was coming from, but did not see any figures inside. There were only record players placed by the window, one responsible for playing music and the other responsible for playing voices. Damn it. We've been fooled. Sam angrily threw the record player to the ground, shattering it. He was about to leave with his brothers, but the next second, bullets poured out of the darkness outside, shooting through the door and window. Grass his mother. These bastards ambush us. Amidst a sea of cursing, everyone found a shelter inside the house that could be used for evasion, and then fired back. However, the outside of the estate was a garden and a forest, and the darkness of the night was too dark to see anything clearly. They fired for half a day, but in the end, they wasted bullets and achieved nothing. At this moment, Samuel also recovered from his angry state and felt some panic. He has always been Andrew's thug, and he does whatever Andrew arranges. He basically only uses his gun and doesn't use his brain. Now that he needs to plan his own action for the first time, he is immediately ambushed by the enemy. So what should be done afterwards, whether to defend or abandon the house to escape, how to take the wounded, and where to go, these important decisions are completely beyond his CPU's ability to handle, and his mind is burning and smoking. At this moment, another amazing discovery by his subordinate caught his attention. Oil, a lot of oil. Boss, all the walls of the rooms here have been smeared with oil. Oil. Samuel paused for a moment and immediately remembered something. He exclaimed in surprise, "Gome, this bastard, is he trying to burn us all here?" With the emergence of his terrifying idea, dozens of combustion bottles flew out of the shadows of the garden outside the house, igniting a blazing flame on the exterior walls of the mansion. In fact, the mansion of Kim's Manor is worth a lot, with a market value of over $300 million. Even for the famous wealthy merchants in Miyagi, this is an unimaginable amount of wealth. However, in order to eliminate the core elite of the Victorian family, Gome did not hesitate to sacrifice his residence in the grand house for over a decade, which was definitely unexpected for everyone. In an instant, the atmosphere of despair spread in the hearts of the members of the Victoria family, as they had no way to escape. There was no shelter outside the house, and no enemy could be seen. As soon as they left, they would face gunfire from all directions. However, hiding inside the house and defending it was not enough, because the fire was getting worse and sooner or later, everyone would be burned to death inside. "Sam, you stupid pig, it's all your fault for being so impatient and not listening, which caused us to fall into the current situation." Under the pressure of the fire, a Victorian family gunman collapsed and shouted, "What's the use of being delayed now?" Most of the brothers didn't have any objections during the meeting. Samuel knew he was in trouble, but he still stubbornly said, "If you have time to shift the blame, why don't you think about what to do now?" "What can I do?" The other gunman next to him was hit in the thigh by a bullet shot from outside the window. He sat on the ground with his legs in despair, crying and crying, "It's all over, it's all over, we'll all be burned here. Woo-woo. If Andrew's boss were still here, he wouldn't let us fall into such a foolish scheme. Sam, you idiot, illiterate. Following you is really a self-destructive act." Embarrassed by the criticism of his companions, Samuel could only desperately shoot into the darkness outside the window to calm his heavy mood. However, as time passed, more and more of his companions were injured or even killed in the enemy's firepower suppression, and the hope of survival seemed to have completely disappeared. But in this suffocating moment of despair, suddenly the muffled sound of a grenade caught the attention of everyone inside the room, followed by a sweeping whistle. A noisy shout and curse sounded, but this time it was not the Victorian family generals inside the house who spoke up, but the Kim family gunmen lurking in the darkness of the garden. "What's the situation?" Samuel and others looked at each other, not understanding what was happening outside. They could only take the risk of getting their heads blown out and peek at the entrance of the mansion to observe. Then, they saw a convoy of cars, like a fleet tearing apart the tide, shining brightly with their headlights as they entered Kim's estate. Countless blue chemical fluorescent rods, flashing flares, and signal flares flew out of the car window together, illuminating the garden and grass that were originally out of sight like daylight. Subsequently, the people in the car immediately began their fierce firepower output, and the sound of gunfire continued to be heard. Although there were only 6 or 7 cars in total, the imposing posture seemed like an army, and Samuel and the gunmen of the Kim family were all confused, unable to distinguish the power of this convoy. Where did this convoy come from when the people and horses of both families were here? Could it be that the mafia families in other areas of the city have received news and are preparing to come and eat black? But soon, as the door of the first car opened, all doubts dissipated, and Samuel saw Daisy and Tao Xiaoxian's stunning faces in the back seat as soon as possible. "Miss Daisy, Miss Tao, how could you?" Sam showed a shocked expression. He never expected that Daisy, the greenhouse flower, in his eyes, would come to rescue him in the desperate situation. Of course, it's definitely not a greenhouse flower now. After all, what greenhouse flower could come specifically to rescue a group of unrelated family members in such a battlefield of gunfire and bullets? Complex emotions surged in his heart, and he instinctively wanted to say something to apologize for, but Daisy raised her finger to her lips and used her movements to stop him from talking nonsense on the battlefield. Then she loudly encouraged, "I am Daisy Victoria. Everyone, I have brought someone to save you. Long live Miss Daisy. We are saved." In the burning mansion, the besieged Victoria gangsters were overjoyed and joined forces to break out. Previously, they couldn't get out mainly because the outside was pitch black and the enemy couldn't be seen, making it impossible to launch an effective counterattack. But now it's different. The arriving convoy not only threw a large number of chemical fluorescent sticks in the garden and lawn, but also continuously used signal flares to provide illumination, wiping out the information advantage of the Kim family ambushes. Moreover, nearby vehicles are still circling around the grassland of the estate, attracting attention and providing firepower cover for the people at the entrance of the mansion. So now, let alone retreating, the Victoria family gang can even directly sound the horn of counterattack, as initially expected, and engage in a frank firepower battle with the Kim family gunmen. In the corner of the estate, Go-mi-wen Kim, dressed in black formal attire, stood behind a tree, coldly observing the distant battlefield. He is over 50 years old, but in the eyes of most people, he looks no different from a middle-aged man in his 30s and 40s, with a meticulous hairstyle, like a university professor. When the gang members of the Victoria family began to counterattack, he suddenly squinted his eyes, observed carefully, and finally pointed to the skilled Chinese girl on the battlefield, saying to a man in black next to him, "That girl has a problem. The rumors are likely true, she is not an ordinary person. The Godfather only asked me to maintain your safety, but did not let me participate in the struggle between you and other gangs," said the black-robed man calmly, his voice hoarse and unpleasant, like an old corpse just dug out of an ancient tomb. "But don't you feel curious? That girl is likely to hold a mysterious Eastern power, and if you can capture her, you might be able to obtain this secret from her." Go-mi looked at him expressionlessly, but his tone was so gentle and persuasive. "I can help hide from my godfather, and even if he finds out, it's okay. I am his most beloved godson. As long as I sincerely repent, he will never be angry about such things." The black-robed man fell into silence, and he had to admit that Go-mi-wen's proposal was indeed very moving. After all, in the mysterious side of the world, different forces often have vastly different strengths and technological gaps, and the mysterious Eastern power just sounds fascinating. "You're lucky." In the end, the black-robed man was still unable to resist this temptation. After emitting a chilling laugh, his figure plunged into the darkness, like a ghostly figure, silently sweeping towards the distant gangster battlefield. This kind of dungeon plot is really difficult to divide into chapters, so we merged them all into one watch, but the word count is definitely not a problem. The new book is a completely new field, and due to not being serialized for too long, there is a serious lack of confidence. We urgently need recommendation tickets to encourage pinching. End of this chapter.